Recording in progress. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel Swarna Ma'am's Biology. In this video, I will be explaining you about the structure of neuron. So let us start. So neuron is the structural and the functional unit of the nervous system. So now we will study structure of this neuron. So when we see the structure of neuron, it contains a cell body which is called as cytosol and a long tail-like structure which is called as axon. So this is a cell body which we are calling it as cytosol, or it is also called as cell body, and a long axon. So inside the cytosol there is cytoplasm. Okay, inside the cytosol there is cytoplasm which we are calling it as neuroplasm, and in the middle there is present nucleus, and attached to the cytosol or the cell body there are present hair-like structures which are called as dendrites. So we are studying the structure of multipolar neuron. So inside the cytoplasm, there are present small granules which we are calling them as Nissel's granules. Okay, they are called as Nissel's granules. So this is the axon. So axon arises from a part which is called as axon hillock. And this axon is covered by a sheath which is called as myelin sheath. It is seen in some case of myelinated neurons. So axon is covered by what is called as myelin sheath, which is produced by a cell which is called as Schwann cell. It is in the case of myelinated neurons. Okay. So Schwann cell. So we are seeing some gaps in between the axon where it is not covered by the myelin sheath, what we call them as nodes of Ranvier. Nodes of Ranvier. Okay. So this is the structure of a multipolar neuron. So these are all called as teledendrites. At the end of the axon, there are present teledendrites. Okay. So at the end of the teledendrites, there are present what is called as synaptic knob. Synaptic knob. So when we see the neurons, so it is a structure of a multipolar neuron. So we know that neurons are mainly necessary for the transmission of the nerve impulses. So how they will be transmitting the nerve impulse? So the dendrites of the one neuron will be receiving the impulses from the teledendrites of the previous neuron. Okay, here also we are seeing the teledendrites, so which will be sending the impulses to the dendrites of the another neuron. So here another neuron will be there. So some impulse will be transmitted through the synaptic knob of this neuron to the dendrites of the next neuron. Okay, so likewise, the previous neuron is sending the impulse through the teledendrites, and it will be this neuron will be receiving the impulses through the dendrites. Means teledendrites of one neuron will be connected to the dendrites or the teledendrites of one neuron will be sending the impulses which will be received by the dendrites of the next neuron. So this neuron which is present before, what we call it as presynaptic neuron. So the previous neuron means the before neuron, we call it as presynaptic neuron. which will be sending the impulse, and the impulse which will be received by the next neuron, we call it as postsynaptic neuron. It is called as postsynaptic neuron. So this is the structure of a multipolar neuron. So let us see again. So we can see here the structure of a multipolar neuron. Okay. Wait. So here we are seeing the multipolar neuron, where these are the dendrites which are attached to the cell body. Now this is the cell body, which is also called as cyton. So the gaps in between the that is myelin sheath, we are calling it as nodes of Raniver, and this is the axon which is present, and they are the Nissel's granules, the granules which are present in the cytoplasm, and this is the nucleus which even contains nucleolus. So the gaps in between the myelin sheath we call it as nodes of Raniver, and this is a Schwann cell which is responsible for the production of that myelin sheath. So myelin sheath. Then these are the synaptic knobs which receive the impulses from the presynaptic neuron. So that is the axon terminal. Okay. So this is about the structure of multipolar neuron. Okay. So when we are seeing the different types of the neurons, so based on the number of the axon and dendrites, there are three types of the neuron. So that is unipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, and multipolar neuron. So when we see, first we will be seeing the unipolar neuron. So when the cell body give rise to only one branch or one process is arising from the cell body, here we can see only one process is arising from the cell body, then we are calling it as unipolar neuron. So this unipolar neuron is present in the embryonic stages of the humans. So here we are seeing only one process is arising from the cell body. So this is unipolar neuron. So when we see the bipolar neuron, here two process is arising from this cell body. So this is called as bipolar neuron. So we can say two process or two branches are arising from the cell body. So it is called as bipolar neuron. When we see a multipolar neuron, so many process are arising. So here, so many process are arising from the cell body or the cyton, which is called as multipolar neuron. So based on the number of the process which is arising from the cell body, there are three types of the neuron. So which are called as unipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, and multipolar neuron. So this unipolar neuron is seen in the case of embryonic stage, whereas bipolar neuron is seen in the case of retina of the eye, whereas the multipolar neuron is seen in the case of cerebral cortex. Okay, so this is the types of the neuron based on the number of axon and dendrites. So depending upon whether the myelinated sheet is present or not, it is again divided into two types. That is myelinated axon as well as non-myelinated axon. So when it is surrounded by the myelinated sheet, which is surrounded by the Schwann cell, it comes under the myelinated axon. It is seen in the spinal as well as cranial nerve. Whereas unmyelinated axon doesn't contain the myelinated sheath, and it is present in the autonomous as well as somatic nervous system. Means the neuron is not, means axon is not surrounded by the myelin sheath. So let us take a small concept test. Retina of the eye is an example of unipolar neuron, bipolar neuron, multipolar neuron, and the motor neuron. So we know that it is bipolar neuron, where the cell body contains only one dendrite and one teledendrite. Means there are no so many dendrites present. So let us summarize the entire thing. A neuron is a microscopic structure composed of mainly three parts. They are the cell body, dendrites, and the axon. The cell body contains the cytoplasm, with some cell organelles like nucleus, etc., and small granules, which we are calling them as Nissel's granules. And the short fibers which branch repeatedly and project out of the cell body, we call them as dendrite. So what is the function of these dendrite? They transmit the impulses towards the cell body. The axon, if we see, it is a long fiber, the distal end which is branched. And each branch, we call them as dendrites, and it has a small bulb-like structure, which we call them it as synaptic knob, okay, which are mainly acting as neurotransmitters. The axon mainly transmit the impulses away from the cell body to a synapse at the neuromuscular junction. Based on the number of the axon and the dendrites, they are divided into three parts, three types, that is unipolar, bipolar, and multipolar neuron. There are two types of the axons, that is myelinated and non-myelinated axons. When the myelin sheath is present, that is myelinated axon. When it is absent, we call it as non-myelinated axon. And we know that the junction between the two myelin sheath, we call it as nodes of Ranvier. Okay. So this is about the neuron, the structure of neuron and the type of the neuron. Hope you understood this topic. If you like this topic, please give a like, share and subscribe my channel Swarna Ma'am's Biology. Meet you in the next video where I will be explaining you about the nerve impulse and transmission. So until then, bye.